Good morning, students. Today we are going to discuss about energy crisis, which is in grade 10. Lesson number 3, sources of energy. Before we go to energy crisis, let us discuss what is energy. Energy is ability content in a body to perform work. Where does it come from? It comes from some stored form of energy. You also know that every object has some form of energy stored in it. For example, a matchstick has chemical energy. Yes, if a stretched catapult has potential energy, running water has kinetic energy, and solar energy as sun has heat energy, or sunlight has heat energy and light energy. A burning fire has heat energy, and coal, petroleum, they have chemical energy. So every object has some sort of energy stored in them. If somehow by using some technology you can transform that stored form of energy into another form of energy, thereby performing some work, then these objects are called sources of energy. So you can say sources of energy are those objects which contain usable form of energy, or those objects which contain some usable form of energy which can be transformed into another form of energy by using a certain technology, thereby performing the work. And you know how many types of source of energy are there? You all know this. There are two types of source of energy, okay, and they are a renewable source of energy and non-renewable source of energy. Now, what is renewable source of energy? You all know that. Yes, some sources of energy, while we keep on using them, some sources of energy get exhausted, but some source of energy just keep on regenerating. In fact, every source of energy keep on regenerating after we use them, but some source of energy regenerate very slowly, whereas some source of energy regenerate as soon as we utilize them. And some sources of energy contain such a vast amount of energy that to whatever extent do we use them, they do not get depleted sufficiently. For example, let's say solar energy. Sun keeps on producing so much energy that whether we use it or we do not use it, it keeps on exhausting. Okay, and it produces so much energy that even if we use its significant amount of sunlight, then also it does not get depleted, because that amount of energy that we use is very insignificant compared to what amount of energy is produced by the sun. Similarly, let's talk about wind energy. Wind keeps on forming, okay, because of difference in atmospheric pressure in different parts of earth. Okay, so wind keeps on forming. So whether we use the wind energy or we do not use the wind energy, it does not matter. Wind keeps on forming, it blows away. Okay, so wind keeps on generating whether we use it or not. Okay. Similarly, hydroelectricity. Hydroelectricity is produced by water stored in dam. Okay, as we use the water in dam to produce electricity, the water in dam keeps on decreasing. The level of water in dam keeps on lowering. Okay, when level of water lowers to a certain depth, then it cannot generate any more hydroelectricity. But every year during monsoon, it causes heavy rainfall, which refills the dam and regenerates a level of water in dam, and then we can again produce electricity from that dam. So hydroelectricity also regenerates over time. Similarly, let's say tidal energy. In to produce tidal energy, a dam is constructed in the coastal area of ocean, and when there is high tide, water flows from ocean into the reservoir through dam, and in the channel turbines are placed. Due to the flow of water, the turbines rotate and it produces electricity. Okay? And during low tide, what happens? Water flows out of the reservoir into ocean. once again water current is produced in the channel, and once again turbine is rotated and electricity is produced. And whether we use tide to produce electricity or not, tide keeps on forming. High tide and low tide keeps on alternating to each other. We use it or we do not use it, it does not matter. Okay, so tidal energy also regenerates over time. Now let's talk about coal. Okay, coal are fossil fuels. It is in solid form. It looks like black rock. It is formed by geothermochemical decomposition of cellulosic material of plants which were dead and buried millions of years ago. So it forms millions of years to form coal. So it takes millions of years to form coal. Now, a certain amount of coal has already been formed on Earth's crust. If we keep on using that coal at certain rate, then that coal might be finished. Okay, in the coal mine, all of the coal might be finished. In that case, will it again form? No, it will not form very soon. Of course, by the process of fossilization and geothermochemical decomposition, new coals are being formed, but it takes millions of years. Whereas, we can finish all those coals within a century. Okay, it takes millions of years to form coal, but humankind or human civilization has been using the coal in such a rate that all of those coals can be finished within a century. Now think of it. Millions of years to form, hundreds of years to exhaust. That is why, in our perspective, coal does not regenerate in significant amount of time. It takes very long time period. Similarly, petroleum. Petroleum is formed by geothermochemical decomposition of tissue materials or hydrocarbons present in invertebrates, lower invertebrates which live in ocean. Definitely. Nowadays, also in present, also several invertebrates are living in ocean. They are dying and they are getting decomposed under the bed of ocean, and they are in the process of formation of petroleum. Okay, they might form petroleum, but it takes millions of years for them to become petroleum. Okay, whereas millions of years ago, when this process already started, the petroleum reservoir has been formed in several places in the crust of Earth. Okay, and we are now mining those petroleum reserves to obtain petroleum, like petrol, diesel, kerosene, aerofuel, LPG gas, and wax. Okay. So to form petroleum also it takes millions of years, but we can use all the petroleum on Earth within a century and exhaust it. It does not take more than few centuries to exhaust all the petroleum reserve present in the Earth's crust. Okay. But then again, it takes another million years to form new reserve of petroleum. That's why petroleum does not regenerate at the rate we utilize them, at the rate we exhaust them. That's why petroleum is also non-renewable sources. Now get it? Hydroelectricity is a renewable source of energy. Wind energy, solar energy, renewable source of energy. Biomass, renewable source of energy. Whereas coal, petroleum, natural gas, non-renewable source of energy. Okay. Now, if we need to define what is renewable source and what is non-renewable source of energy, then you can say that those sources of energy which can get exhausted and regenerate over very short period of time, then such sources of energy are called renewable source of energy. For example, solar energy, wind energy, biomass, hydroelectricity, tidal energy, etc. Whereas those sources of energy which can get exhausted by using them, but it takes significantly very long time period to regenerate, or which cannot regenerate within short period of time, such sources of energy are called non-renewable sources of energy. For example, petroleum, coal, and natural gas, and nuclear energy. Petroleum, coal, natural gas, and nuclear energy. These are non-renewable sources of energy. Now come to energy crisis. In present world, which source of energy is being consumed at the highest rate? You all can answer the question. Okay, you all know it. Most mineral oil, coal, and natural gas. Mineral oil, coal, and natural gas. These three are considered collectively as fossil fuel. Okay, mineral oil, coal, and natural gas. These three are considered as fossil fuel. And fossil fuel is the greatest source of energy which are being used by human civilization. Okay, it accounts for 80% of energy demand, global energy demand. 80% of global energy demand is made by fossil fuel. Now you can see, to run vehicle, you need fossil fuel like petrol, diesel, or aerofuel. Okay, to operate ship, you need fossil fuel like coal. To operate train, you need fossil fuel. Okay. And highest amount of electricity being used on planet Earth is also generated from fossil fuel in thermochemical, as a thermoelectric generation, thermal energy. Okay. And industries also use fossil fuel in several processes, and mostly to boil water to operate furnaces, kiln, etc. So you can say around 80% of global energy demand is made by fossil fuels. And why is that? Because most of the existing technology are developed by keeping in view of fossil fuel. Most of the machineries, vehicles, and engines are developed to be operated by using fossil fuel. Now, if your bike comes with a petroleum engine, can you operate it by using any other source of fuel? No. Like electricity? No. You cannot operate your petroleum bike by using electricity. But if you develop a bike which is to be operated by using electricity, then obviously you can run it with electricity. So you see, most of the technology that surround us, they are operated by fossil fuel. They are designed to be operated by fossil fuel, especially vehicles and machineries, which requires very high amount of energy to operate them. Now, what happens if all the fossil fuels are finished? What happens if mineral oil is exhausted? What happens if coal is exhausted? What happens natural gas goes to dry? What happens? Then none of the vehicles will be operated, because most of the vehicles are designed to operate on fossil fuel. None of the vehicles. Or aeroplanes, they definitely need aerofuel. They cannot operate as well. Okay. Some trains might operate because they are designed to run through electricity. They might be operated. But remember this, around 85% of electricity generated on planet Earth is also produced from fossil fuel. That means no fossil fuel means electricity will also be cut down by 85%. So the option of electric vehicles are also reduced. Machineries or factories, they go dry. Okay. The factories might be terminated. Most of resources might also be terminated. Everything might be stopped if fossil fuel is finished, if fossil fuel exhaust. Not only that, 7 billion population of world requires very high amount of food. Okay, that food is being produced thanks to chemical fertilizers. You know that. And notice this: to produce chemical fertilizer, also you need massive amount of fossil fuels. Fossil fuels are used for production of chemical fertilizer as well, and chemical fertilizers are used in field to produce food, to grow more crops, and that food is supplied to 7 billion people on earth. Now if fossil fuel goes to exhaust, then food production will also diminish by several factors, and there will be global hunger. Okay, so that is also a big disaster. Now we see, if fossil fuel is exhausted, then the entire world or the global system will go to jeopardize. That is a big problem, and such problem due to lack of sources of energy is defined as energy crisis, or the desperate situation which is created due to lack of sources of energy is called energy crisis. Okay. Now what causes energy crisis? The causes of energy crisis, I'll give you certain few points. Number one, the causes of energy crisis. Number one, the first foremost cause is rapid population growth. As population increases, we need more vehicles, we need more industries, we need to grow more food, we need to do more constructions. Our energy demand increases according to population growth. Okay, so number one cause of energy crisis is rapid population growth. Please note it down. And second most important cause of energy crisis is over dependence on single source of energy. Over dependence on single source of energy, and that is fossil fuel. Since we have developed most of the technologies to be operated by fossil fuel, then if fossil fuel exhausts, then all the problems that we discussed just now, they are likely to happen. But think of it, 20% of our technology is dependent on fossil fuel, another 40% is dependent on electricity, and another 40% technology is dependent on other forms of energy such as solar energy or geothermal energy or other wind energy or other forms of energy. In that case, even if fossil fuel exhausts, then only 20% of our economy will be jeopardized. We still have other source of energy, other usable source of energy. We still have 80% technology which operates on other forms of energy. In such case, exhaustion of fossil fuel does not make a big scene. That means energy crisis might not occur. So what is happening nowadays? In present context, 80% of technology depends on fossil fuel. Only 20% of technology are operated by other forms of energy. That means if fossil fuel exhausts, then 80% of our technology might become useless, or our economy will be jeopardized by several factors. That is the cause of energy crisis, over dependency on single source of energy. And third most important reason or cause of energy crisis is non-judicial use of energy sources. Judiciary use, judiciary use, you have been studying it since grade 8. Judiciary use of energy sources means use energy sources whenever needed, and to whatever amount it is needed. Where you need it, when you need it, and to what amount do you need it. Only keep these three things in your mind. Do not use source of energy where it is not necessary, or do not use of source of energy when it is not necessary, and do not use the source of energy more than you need it. Keep these three things in mind, then it will be judiciary use of energy sources. For example, if we use significant amount of energy just to let's not go over there. Say you have 10 rooms in your house, and at a time you people stay in only one room. Okay, that means only one room is needed to be lighted, but most of us do what? We keep light on in all the rooms, all 10 rooms. That means in 9 of the rooms, use of energy is non-judiciary. Energy is being used non-judiciarily. Okay. Sometimes what we do, we turn on television. We need to go out somewhere, but we do not turn it off. We forget to turn off the television. So that is also non-judiciary use of electricity. Or in case of development, suppose in some place a bridge was not actually needed, but for some political reason the bridge was constructed, and then after, for the same political reason, the bridge is destroyed. Now, is that all the energy sources utilized to construction and destruction of the bridge? That is also wastage of energy. So that is also not a judiciary use of energy. Okay. So third most important reason of energy crisis is non-judiciary uses of energy. Okay. Now let's get to attempts to reduce energy crisis and worldwide. So based on the discussion that we just performed on causes of energy crisis, now you can suggest some remedies to solve the energy crisis. Number one, think of it, control of population growth. Since the overpopulation is the original cause of energy crisis, then we must control the population. Obviously not by killing people, but by controlling birth. Okay, we can use birth control, birth spacing. Okay, and second one is development of alternate sources of energy, or development of technology that uses alternate source of energy, and thereby reducing or lowering the reliance on petroleum and fossil fuels. Okay. And third most important remedy is judiciary use of sources of energy. Okay, number one, control of population growth. Number two, development of technologies that relies on fossil fuel, and thereby lowering the dependence or over dependence on fossil fuel. And number three, judiciary use of judiciary use of sources of energy. Now if you can give other points to remedy energy crisis, I'd happily like to know that. So today's your homework is write an essay on energy crisis, causes of energy crisis and its solution on your own points. Okay, thank you very much. This much for today. We'll see you tomorrow.